Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org and welcome to this tutorial on creating a spell checker. Now if you haven't already taken a look at the first part of this tutorial, it basically just runs over the introduction. So if you don't feel like you need an introduction to this, that's absolutely fine, continue watching. Otherwise, in this tutorial we're going to go ahead and set up the database and import this large list of words here, which is in english.txt. I think we've got 153,222 words, so quite a significant amount of words. We're going to go ahead and load these into a database table. Now I've already created my database and this is called Spellchecker. That's pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go into doing that. It's basically through PHP MyAdmin. I'm now going to go ahead and create a table, and we're going to set up this table ready to import this file. So let's go ahead and create the table. I'm going to choose the name English, and the reason for this is if I had, say, other languages that I wanted to import a list of dictionary words from, I could then go ahead and create another table, and I could switch between these depending on the user's language preferences. That's not really something we're going to be covering in this tutorial, but it's something to prepare for just in case you need to use another language. So the number of fields in this table is just going to be 1. We're literally just using this table as a storage area for each word. So the number of fields being 1, we can just create that column. I'm going to call the field just word because obviously each row is just going to contain a single word, and I'm going to set the type to varchar and the length to 55. No particular reason for this. The largest word here is probably sort of around 30 characters, but I want to sort of accommodate for perhaps larger words in the future. So this can be varchar, or you can change it to text depending, but probably recommended to do varchar. So we don't really need to set any settings here. We can just come down here and click save, and that will actually go and create our table for us. Now inside of the table, we're going to use the SQL tab to create a custom query that's going to load in this text file here, so english.txt. Now we're going to need to supply the full path to this, so that is // and all of this here, and then obviously the file name english.txt. So if I just open up Windows Explorer, I'm going to copy the file path. That's english.txt here. You can see we've got db.php and index.php, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that into my clipboard. So inside of PHP MyAdmin, once again, we're going to go ahead and actually create the query. So we're going to be using load data in file, and we're then going to specify a file name in here. Now the reason we're doing it this way is because load data in file is an extremely quick way of loading text files on a line-by-line basis, or on any other sort of basis. You can sort of specify more parameters to this functionality, and basically really quickly loads it in. Because we've only got one field, which is word, it's just going to load this line by line into lots of different rows. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the directory or the file path in here, and I'm going to go ahead and type in english.txt afterwards. Now this isn't going to work as it stands because we've got backslashes. We need to change these to forward slashes. So I'm just going to go ahead and change these all now. And once we've done this, we need to specify the actual table that we want to load this into. So we're just literally going to say into table, and then in single quotation marks, sort of apostrophes, I guess, I'm going to go ahead and type in English. That's the table name that we want to load it into. We could write something like spellchecker.english. It works exactly the same way, but in this case it doesn't really matter. So now that I've created this query here, that's going to load this text file here in line by line and create a row for each data. So let's go ahead and click go. And you can see that we've got 153,222 rows inserted, and the query took 0.1 seconds, so an extremely fast way of loading this in. If I go now and click browse, you can see that all these words have now been loaded in to each record, and we've got around 5,000 page numbers. Okay, or pages rather. Okay, so now that we've done this, we have our text file loaded into our database. We can go ahead and start connecting to our database and actually writing our spell checker code. So just again, the reason that we're using a database table rather than reading this english.txt file from itself is because this is going to save a lot of processing power with regards to PHP. The load time will be significantly reduced if we use our database table and store these values in a database table. If we're reading from a file, it's going to take significantly longer, and obviously if you're checking multiple words, this really does add up. So that's the reason that we're using a MySQL database table. So I'm going to go ahead and close english.txt. We don't really need this. We're going to go ahead and first of all create our database connection. So let me just get rid of this down here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our PHP tags, and inside here I'm going to use two functions to connect to, first of all, my MySQL server, and then we're going to select the appropriate database, which is called Spellchecker over here. So let's go ahead and use the MySQL connect function, and it takes three parameters, the first being the server, which is localhost, almost always will be. The second is the username, and the third is the password. In the case I'm using a local server, I don't have a password set. Now we're going to go ahead and MySQL select DB, and this will just select the database that we want to use, and in this case, like I said, it's called Spellchecker, so we can go ahead and say Spellchecker. Okay, so now basically now what we've done is connected to our database. We don't really need this file anymore, so we can get rid of that. Now we can start to work on index.php and actually writing this code out. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually outline the sort of overall overall structure of this file. We're going to obviously require in the db.php file, we're going to set error reporting to all, and that's just going to make sure that we return any errors if we get any, so we can pinpoint errors easily. We're also going to be creating a spell check function, and then we're going to be creating an HTML form as well. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is turn error reporting to its full level, so that's e_all, using the error reporting function, and then I'm going to require the db.php file that we just created, and that will just include this into the script and allow us to connect to the database. The reason I'm using this in an external file is because we might want to use it for other files. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just outline this function which is called spellcheck. And the spell check function is going to take in a single word, and that's going to be processed against this list of words. Now in a moment I'm going to talk about how the overall process of this works, but let's go ahead and just create our form, our HTML form first. You can see in the browser nothing really exists at the moment. So let's go ahead and create a form with an action, obviously, and a method, and we can end that form there. The method's going to be get, because we want to see it in the address bar so we know that everything's working properly, and action is going to be blank because it will just sort of go back to the same page, which being this page. We're now obviously going to go ahead and create sort of our form fields, so let's go ahead and just say, what can we say, check single word spelling, so check single word spelling. And after that, immediately after that, I want an input field with the type text, and I'm going to give this a name of word. So we're going to have this word variable visible in our URL browser, URL bar, sorry. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and create a submit button, obviously, so we can submit this form. So the type of this next input field is submit, and the value will be check. So now what's going to happen is inside of our browser we have this. So we can go ahead and type in a word, so academy for example, click on check, and you now see that word equals academy. So we can use PHP to pick up on this variable and then sort of apply it to this spell check function. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do, just to sort of output something to the user, is check if the word has been set. So I'm going to create an if statement just down here. Just a word of warning, just quickly, this function here is probably better off in another external file, just in case you wanted to use it across multiple files in your sort of on your website. It's always recommended to place functions in external files and then include them or require them into your script, just so you can use them elsewhere. But for now, we're just going to keep everything in the same file to keep things simple. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is check is $_get, which is accessing the word variable that was visible in our URL bar here. we're going to check if that's set, so that's Word. We're going to do another check in just a moment, but I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to create a new variable here, and I'm going to set this to $_get word. So that's the word equals $_get word. We're basically just placing this variable here into another variable so we can use it a bit more easily throughout the program. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and echo word, and that's just going to sort of echo that word back out to us just so we know that everything's working. So if I go ahead and type in academy and click check, you can see that we're sort of echoing out academy here and anything else we type in here. Now the one thing we need to check out for is actually echoing out nothing. So if I was to say enter a couple of spaces and click check, we're actually still echoing these couple of spaces out when we don't want to be. So we're going to include another check just here, and that's going to be and $_get word doesn't equal null. Now what we also want to do is trim this value that we've taken in from the user, so it removes white space from the left and right hand side. For example, if the user was to type academy and then a space afterwards, let's just go ahead and do that with a space afterwards and click check, that space is actually removed by PHP, so we don't have the space afterwards. This is just going to be a bit more accurate when we're checking against the values already in the database. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this. What we've essentially now done is created a way for a user to type in a word. What we've then done is checked if this word is set, and then we have checked that it doesn't equal null while trimming the value to ensure that white space is removed from each side. What we've then done is reset this submitted variable into another variable called word, and we've already outlined our spell check function up here. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is actually create the spell check function itself, and we're obviously going to process more things here. So that will be in the third part of the tutorial.